I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2018 meeting of the Association of Historical Societies of New Hampshire. It's wonderful to see so many of you here, especially given today's weather forecast. Valerie Cunningham, the current president of the association, was going to be here, but due to the weather, she was in Portsmouth. She decided that it would be best for her to stay home, and so I am stepping in as the past president. My name is Heather Mitchell, and I am the director of the Hopkinton Historical Society. And I'd like to start off today by thanking Andrew Cushing of Grafton for hosting the event at this beautiful facility, and I hope everyone can stay for some tours afterwards of the buildings that are in proximity. And what I would like to do now is turn it back over to Jenna for, to me, what is the most exciting part of the annual meeting, when we go through our awards. And I have to say that we received a wonderful bunch of nominations this year. I was part of the awards committee, and it was a difficult decision, but it was super exciting to see all of the many exciting projects that people are working on across the state. It really enforces the idea of how historical societies connect with their communities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jen.
So this year, the association is awarding 7 organizations for the work that they do to preserve and communicate New Hampshire history. It was a difficult decision to make. We had the highest number of applications this year, so we're thrilled about that. And in the end, we're awarding 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards, 1 Research and Documentation Award, and 4 Public Education Awards, 2 of which for exhibits and 2 for school projects. I'd like to start with Lifetime Achievement. So we looked at who's made an impact in their society, in their community, and acts as a model for other historical organizations in the state. So first, we'd like to offer an award to Patricia Cutter of the Andover Historical Society. She recently retired from the Society's board after serving in various capacities for 23 years. Her colleagues define her as a leader, laying the foundation for the museum's growth and prosperity over time, a resource assisting not only her historical society but others as well. I would like to offer her an award and have her come up and say a few words if she's willing.
Because it was founded just about the time that my husband and I...
Please, you need to use the microphone up close. Thank you.
Okay. All right. The Andover Historical Society was born very shortly after my husband and I bought a house in Andover, New Hampshire. We decided subsequently to retire there, and I have to say I used the society as a vehicle to meet people in the town because I was new. And it was a wonderful experience for me, really. I first, after a few years, ended up as the curator with very little experience in doing that. And it was a wonderful learning experience. And we were able to build within the attic of our museum, more secure storage for our archives. We don't have heat up there, and we don't have air conditioning up there. That's yet to come. But it made a big change in how we kept our records and material. And eventually I ended up as president. Anyway, and I can't tell you how many years I served, I forgot. But I think I was appointed in 1990. That's a long time ago. Anyway, it's been a wonderful experience for me. But I have to say, at my age, I was very happy to hand it over to a nice young me.
Now, Rob Stevenson is with the Jaffrey Historical Society. Active for over 30 years, Rob has played a significant role in projects related to historic preservation, research, documentation, editing and publishing the history of Jaffrey, New Hampshire. He conducts public programming, he's created the Society's website and does marketing and promotion. He brings his role at the Society out into the community, also serving on the Cemeteries Committee, and he's actively involved in the Monadnock Historical Society's Roundtable Forum. Rob could not be here today, but we have a crowd from Jaffrey. Somebody want to come up and say a couple words? Thank you, Charlie.
Well, on behalf of Rob Stevenson, I want to thank Jennifer for her work on putting this together. Rob has been just one of the finest people that I've met in my short time that I've been in Jaffrey, which is just about 6 years. As Vice President of the Jaffrey Historical Society, he has just been a key to so much information. His publications that I have, at least 14 of them with me, have just been inspiring. I've done his walks through the town of Jaffrey. I've done most of his publications I've read, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. And with me today are other members of the Jaffrey Historical Society who are a long-time residents of Jaffrey, and again, just a wealth of knowledge. And I learned, in just 6 years, I've learned so much about the town, and it's really made me feel very blessed. And I think that if historical societies across New Hampshire are doing that same venue, then this is a fabulous place to live, the state of New Hampshire, and for me, the town of Jaffrey. And again, thank you for Rob and Jennifer. Thank you.
Now, we don't have a specific category for publication of books, but we do have, we have had submissions in the past, and what we do consider is the collaborative effort that a historical society makes to work with its members and others in the community to research and document its community's history. We award the process, not the product. Brentwood Historical Society is receiving this kind of award. In 2017, the town of Brentwood celebrated its 275th anniversary. The Historical Society set about researching and publishing an updated version of its town history as an important contribution to the celebration. After 18 months, 100 volunteers working countless hours, the Society published a 590-page hardcover history of the community, which is way down the stage right here for you all to look at afterwards. It's really amazing. Let me switch the slide. There you go. So we'd like to offer an award to Brentwood Historical Society for the amazing work that they're doing, and I'd like, if somebody can come up, somebody here from Brentwood? Yes, perfect. And talk about how it's sold out. Mention where it's going now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for the award. We appreciate what the awards committee is doing, awarding and recognizing work that's going on in New Hampshire. I'm Rebecca Dunham, president of the Brentwood Historical Society, and was involved as editor of this book. We started out thinking our 100-page history from 1967 might become a 200-page softcover book, 8.5 by 11. After working on this, we ended up with the 597 pages and almost 100 volunteers involved, doing everything from doing research in state documents, scanning documents, staffing old photo days when people brought in documents or materials they wanted to include in the book, involving people as writers, editors, proofers, designers. We've had wonderful services of a person who lives in town who did all of the work designing and doing the layout of the book. We incurred no expenses. Everything was volunteers. We had no support from the town. And we sold the books, all 500 of them, for $25. So it was a wonderful experience for us to raise a little money and to raise public awareness. We have been excited. It has increased membership in the Historical Society, increased membership at our events. We do 4 programs a year, and it has brought people together. It really was a wonderful community building experience. And it was so successful, we just had a meeting 2 weeks ago about doing a second printing and including a section of material that came forward after we printed. It was amazing what people offered and how much we learned about our town and its place in New Hampshire history. So thank you very much for the recognition.
Now we'll move on to public education and exhibits. So there were many applications submitted in this category for a variety of interesting exhibits and programs that have occurred throughout the state. So just to voice what Heather was saying earlier, it was for the committee, it's always eye-opening for us to see all of these projects and the great things that are being done across the state. And this year we did select 2 exhibits that displayed artifacts, but also contextualized those items through public programs and expert-level research. Exhibits have a way of engaging community members in the process, and both of these projects exemplify that as well. The Horatio Colony House Museum this year installed an exhibit, a remarkable exhibit, and created a stellar public programming series to support the exhibit theme. 2 sides of the coin highlighted the story of Nathan Blake's captivity by Native people in the 1740s, but it also revealed both the Native American and colonial cultural clashes for control of New England's natural environment, specifically in Keene and Cheshire counties. The program series included 4 lectures that were designed to bridge the gap between Native and non-Native cultures and make connections between our shared paths. So I would like to ask Anita to come up and please receive the award.
Thank you so much for this award. We really appreciate this recognition for the museum. History answers the questions who, what, when, where, how, and why. Why is the spade that digs deeper into these stories? And the question of why was the inspiration of this series that we did called 2 Sides of the Coin. The museum is built on the property that was one of the first colonial farms in the early 18th settlement of Upper Ashwellet that became Keene, New Hampshire. The farm was that of a man named Nathan Blake. Now, all the Keene histories talk about the story of, in 1746, Nathan Blake was captured from this property. He was brought up into Canada, and he was in captivity for about 2 years. Meanwhile, his wife, Elizabeth Graves, raised money to ransom him back. Nathan lived out the rest of his life on the property, and it was their son, Abel Blake, that built the house that is now the Horatio Colony House Museum. So in the 1930s, the Daughters of the American Revolution erected a monument on the small lawn next to the museum to commemorate that captivity story of Nathan. And this past May, the DAR decided to rededicate that monument. So we thought that that would be a good opportunity to do an exhibit about Nathan Boyd. So in researching, we began to ask that question, why did those warriors raid here? Now, when I was in school, my history was really based on the history of the colonial settlers. And for the most part, Native Americans were portrayed as savages who burnt farms and killed women and children. So we wanted to take this opportunity to present a more balanced history that told the Native side of the story as well. We actually planned 2 exhibits. The first one was called Two Sides of the Coin, which was the title for the whole series. And that one portrayed the history of the Abenaki people pre and post contact, and then the story of the settlement of Upper Asheville and including the French and Indian Wars. The second exhibit, we wanted to present Abenaki people today. So we got a traveling exhibit through the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum that's really a timeline of traditional clothing and regalia worn by Abenaki people, and these are made by the Vermont Abenaki Artists Association. And finally, that exhibit was called Alnabak, Wearing Our Heritage. Through a community projects grant and 2 Humanities to Go programs offered by New Hampshire Humanities, we were able to expand on the exhibit by offering programs. The first, Our Beloved Kin, a new history of King Philip's War, offered by Lisa Brooks, who is an Abenaki professor at Amherst College and a noted Native American scholar. We offered Digging into Native American History in New Hampshire, given by archaeologist Robert Goodby. The next was The Indian Wars of New Hampshire by author Michael Tugas. Robert Goodby then gave a Native American object identification program at the museum. And finally, we offered a gallery talk for the opening of Wearing Our Heritage, given by Vera Lunto Sheehan, who is the culture bearer of the Elmu tribe and the director of the Vermont Abenaki Artists Association. We estimated about 800 people visited the museum to see the 2 exhibits and also attend the programs. So I thank you very, very much for this award.
Now, moving on. This is the second time Madison has received an award from us. Last time it was for their bridal gown exhibit, and this time we're excited to award Madison Historical Society for their quilt exhibit, Quilts Then and Now. Not just a display of so many wonderful quilts, the Society has carefully used their exhibits as an opportunity to research and document their collection, to borrow from community members, and to share what they've learned through exhibits, programs, and even putting what they've learned online on their website. I'd like somebody from Madison to come up and accept an award and talk a little bit about your project. You should also win an award for the biggest application. Because it was wonderful. It was very good. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We are so pleased to be here with you today in this wonderful space. Thank you so much for hosting us. As was said, this is our second award, which is very exciting. We are a pretty small historical society. We're seasonal, as we have no heat, as you do here. We have no running water. And so we really do programs from May through September monthly. And we try to have a summer exhibit. This year we did Quilts then and now. We were just blown away by the participation that we got from our community members. Everything we had in our exhibit, which ended up being over 100 quilts, were loaned from various community members, and each of those quilts had a wonderful story that went with it. Sitting here with me this morning is Penny Hathaway, our treasurer, who put together a very fat exhibit book. We have one here to share if you'd like to see it later. We started out last year, actually there was a year lapse between our wonderful wedding dress exhibit and this one, where we decided we wanted to do something to really kind of speak to the men in our community. We have a wonderful tool collection. So we put together a pretty nice collection of tools for the summer. Sadly, we didn't have a lot of folks come to see it. So we decided for this past year, we really had to think about something that was going to get a little bit more community involvement and just not things from our collection. What were people interested in? What was going on out there? And, we kind of said, every household in Madison, I'm sure every household in New England has a quilt or a number of quilts. So let's see what we can do with this. Well, you never know what you're going to get. You could have, 10 quilts. Who knows? We started out, and the plan was kind of set in motion in February, but because of our heat, we really didn't get a chance to start collecting these quilts and to see what we were going to get until May, with an opening in June. And as I say, we started out slowly, and then they kept coming. And there are wonderful stories with these quilts. So we had a grand opening with on our side lawn with, I have to tell this quick story. This is dedication. I spoke of Penny. We're having this, get together on the side lawn. We had a wonderful cake that was planned with an image of a quilt on it. Penny went to get the cake at Hanford. About 11:30, I got a phone call saying, the cake is toast and the car is in the pond. And I said, what? And are you all right? She said, well, the car is in the pond and the cake is toast. What are we going to do? I said, never mind the cake. Are you all right? So, long story short, we ended up with a second cake, thanks to Hannaford and Penny's and Mike's son, who went to collect it. We went on and to have a lovely opening, a wonderful run of the summer. We were able to have a cool demonstration at one point on our side lawn with people coming to see how this was all done in various ways, and we were able to host Pam Weeks, who is the curator of the New England Quilt Museum. And a New Hampshire humanities speaker. She came in and we had a wonderful time with her. She brings her own quilts to speak about, but we had a room full of quilts for her to speak on. And I was able to get a little extra time with her at the end, and we learned a lot about some of the quilts that we had. We really didn't know much about. We ended up with quilts from the time period of 1850 through the present time. Some were very utilitarian, some were works of art, and it was just a terrific exhibit for us. We also had 2 lap quilts that were donated for us to raffle off for the benefit of our society. We are going to be working towards trying to get a better storage area for our collection as well. I'm sorry that our curator, Karen Lord, who actually mounted the exhibit, was unable to be with us tonight. She also was assisted by her mother-in-law and a wonderful friend who came through from the Quilt Guild, who just had, all kinds of wonderful ideas. So thank you to the association. Thank you all for showing up here. Nice, hearty New Englander, New Hampshireites that we are on this wonderful day. Thanks again.
of the amazing collaborations between schools and historical organizations. Projects that engage students with local history. Both are wonderful models for other communities in the state. And I would encourage you after this, we'd love to do a Q&A, so if anyone has questions for anybody who has received awards, that would be the time. First, Hill Historical Society. Our story is a collaboration between Hill Historical Society and the Jenny D. Blake Elementary School in Hill, New Hampshire. Upon entering kindergarten, students receive a binder which contains a short history of the town. It's covered with a historic photograph of school children and a blank box where the kindergartner displays their own photo, signifying that their story too is a part of the history of the community. Each year, students add to their binders with a K-6 curriculum that ties in local history. Presentations and field trips add to the experience each year. Is somebody here from Hill? Yes, come up. We have copies of the binders here that you people can look through after, but I love your project and I love you. Thank you. So we have two, one for the Historical Society and one that we'd love for you to take to the school.
That's great.
So here you are. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. This is, yeah. Not very good at this. But what we did was really a run on community building. Because Hill, at this point, is so small that we've lost our gas station, our store is closed, although it may reopen in December, and the post office is on half-time. What we do have in the community is an amazing history. Hill, in case you don't know, was the only town that survived the building of the flood control system in the Merrimack Valley after the Great Hurricane of 1938. And the reason Hill survived was because the people got together and had such community spirit that they moved the whole town, which there was no precedent for. And this is the kind of thing kids need to know. If they have an understanding of where they came from, and if you get to catch the kids, you catch the parents, then you've got a more solid base in the community. Besides which, we're having a lot of fun. So.
Thank you for the award. But also, one of the things that excites us is to share the idea with you folks. Hill has a great, wonderful history, and even a couple of people on our Historical Society board, when we first brought up the idea, they said, our kids don't want to learn history. And they do. Oh, they do. Where we are, the two of us are primarily the presenters of this. But we've got allies with other members of the Historical Society, working with the kids with their interests and and the kids, we're having fun. The kids are learning. We have some field trips. We brought the kids to the Canterbury Village just a week and a half ago. And in their thank you notes, they said, it was great. It was like having school in recess at the same time.
At the end of the first year, we're in our fourth year of doing this now. At the end of the first year, we showed a idea map of where, the newly designed village, and the kids were looking at it saying, oh, that's Barron Street, that's where I live. And then one of the kids, I swear, he looked at me and he said, I just love this stuff. And if we can get across the idea that the history of the town is their history, but their history is also the town's, then we've done it. This by I'm sorry, I'm butting in, but what's, this is a picture of the cover.
Just happen to have one.
So, it's named, the school is named after Jenny Dickinson Blake, who was the teacher. This was taken down at before the town was moved, and the school is named for her. That's where we started, and we asked the kids to put pictures from their own school population, and on their binder.
So each student receives a binder. It's got some of the basic information of town, but then we insert stuff as we do different activities, as people come in to talk with the kids, as they are taking a field trip. So the binders get bigger and bigger, and the kids are learning, but they're not only learning, but they're involved in it. And we just started our 4th year, and we gave the kindergartners their personal binders. And the neatest thing is that we have 5 kids who volunteered to work with the old history ladies to help tell the story. So we've got some junior historians. So we're really excited about the program. I hope it's obvious. And we do have the binders, and we'd love to share the whole idea with others. It works. Have some fun, tell the history, get the kids involved, get the school involved. It works. Thank you.
When they asked us from the awards committee if we wouldn't mind bringing in our binders to share with all of you, I said no, because I wanted to keep mine. But our region has a historical society forum, and so there's a group of us that meet 3 times a year to share ideas, and so I kept a copy for the Monadnock region so I can make copies for people, and so if anybody else is involved in regional kinds of historical society groups, I would encourage you to take one and share it as well. Oh, here's another picture from it. So, as part of a local history project, 3rd and 4th grade students at John D. Perkins Academy in Marlow wrote and illustrated a book about the life of Callista, a world famous opera singer, Callista Huntley Piccioli. She was born in Marlow in 1841. Working with the Historical Society, the class wrote the text, illustrated the pictures, and learned about the past in order to create their book. Today we have Tracy Messer representing the Historical Society, but also Leah Giles is here with some of the students. And I would love to invite them to come up and share their story. And I imagine you guys brought copies? Okay. Congratulations. So again, we have 2 awards, one for the Historical Society and one that we would like you guys to take back to your classroom to have for your class. This was probably my favorite award I got to announce because I got patched into the class live and got to tell the students that they won an award, which was fantastic. So congratulations, girls, that's for the class. This is for the Historical Society. Thank you. Who would like to speak to you?
Thank you to Jenna and to the association for this award. As was echoed by many of the other award recipients, it's always exciting when a historical society can take its artifacts and its research and partner with young people to make those stories come alive. And this is the 2nd collaboration that the Marlow Historical Society has had with the Perkins Academy. Our first booklet was about the story of the 1941 forest fire in Marlow, New Hampshire, the largest forest fire in the state history. So the proceeds from that first book actually went into a fund to finance the second book. So it's a self-perpetuating project here. And as we were figuring out what topic to choose for the second book, Callista Huntley Piccioli's story came out as music to our ears. So let me pass the microphone along and you can learn more about Madame Piccioli.
So this project, like Tracy said, was the second. My goal for our school is to continue writing local history picture books with the students and maybe someday get them published into an anthology. This one, Callista Huntley, was a fascinating story to us because it starts in such an ordinary place. And it all started with some questions. We asked the class, did you know that there was a world famous opera singer born in Marlow, New Hampshire? And the answer was, no, we did not. I did not either. But by asking that question and looking for the answer, we came up with even more questions. And the students were very curious, and we kind of turned into a game. The more questions they asked, the more answers we came up with, which caused more questions. And we were very curious about her life, and we learned about facts of her life. Tracy was so generous on countless hours of research, and this is his passion, and he shared that with us. So we shared his research, and then made some connections. We needed to gain some perspective, though. She was born in 1841, and time was very different. And so we made a gigantic timeline, and we talked about the things that were going on in the world during Callista's life. And we made so many connections. There were many differences, but also the kids were able to make so many connections through other things we were learning and their own lives. And we decided to turn her story into a narrative. So we imagined that we knew the facts, but we didn't necessarily know the whys. So we had to use our imagination. We had to put ourselves in her shoes and think about why she might have done the things she did and what her life was like. And the kids showed a ton of empathy in taking the facts and learning from taking their perspectives and turning it into a book that's beautifully illustrated. And it was a very exciting project. The girls are very excited to answer some questions later too. So if you have any questions about the project,
I have a question right now.
Kelsey and Quinn would be happy to do
Tell us
that.
again, it is not the Hill Historical Society.
Cheshire County, the Cheshire County.
Tell me again which historical society.
The Cheshire County Historical Society. Oh, Marlow, and we're Marlow, New Hampshire. Oh, I'm sorry.
Great. So thank you. I think if you guys don't mind standing here for a sec. I just lastly wanted to mention that because we had so many applications this year, we also have 2 honorable mentions. I just wanted to take a sec to mention 2 other projects in the state that were really caught our attention. One was Lyme Historians for their exhibit, Bridal Dresses Then and Now, which displays 24 bridal gowns through the ages, including loans from the community, attracting 300 visitors. The other project that we wanted to mention, and here I did it again, it's not Lyme Historians. Another project I want to mention is a collaboration between the Mariposa Museum, Canaan Historic District Commission, and the Canaan Historical Museum. They did a collaborative project showcasing the traveling exhibit, And We Rise, Race, Culture, and Visual Conversation. It's a collection of 32 quilts depicting key moments in African American history, and it was created by the Women of Color Quilters Network. And so this exhibit included programs as well. And so we just wanted to be able to take a moment to recognize their work. But I do want to give us a little bit of time to have all of you maybe ask some questions of some of the award winners, if you have questions about how you might be able to apply these kinds of things in your own communities. So does anyone have questions for Marlo? The kids are really ready to answer any questions? Yeah? I'm happy to run around with a microphone.
I think I can speak loud now.
I think you could.
Okay. What grade are you in?
4th. Both of us are in 4th.
It was for the 4th grade program?
Yeah, well, I teach 3rd and 4th grade. We wrote the
both when these girls were in third grade, but it's a third and fourth grade combined.
Okay, thank you.
How did you decide who would do what research for writing or drawing?
Some kids wanted to do certain parts. Some kids wanted to do certain parts, and other kids wanted to do other parts. So we ended up putting parts that we wanted to do on the sticky note, and Michelle would later on pick like who we were doing what parts, and we had partners. And that's basically how we did it. Another question.
I don't need the microphone. What was the most interesting thing that you learned about this woman in your research?
The most interesting thing to me and Kelsey, I know, that is she chose her passion over her family. Her family didn't want to come to the United States with her. And I was just surprised how she chose her passion over her family. I would just never do that. One thing I was also surprised over was that when Miss Jarrow showed us a picture of the house, I had recognized that I lived in that house. So I thought that was really cool, that I lived in somebody really big.
Did you have any questions left over after you were done and you couldn't find answers to?
Not really.
What was the biggest question that you were during writing?
I have a list of all the questions they asked in the box over here. So we can take those out too.
Do you mind to talk a little bit about, like, how did you organize this and build it as part of your classroom structure?
So it started by engaging the students first and building their curiosity with the questions and visits from Mr. Messer. And once they were hooked into wanting to do this and interested in her life, then, the planning of it took place. We watched a presentation, we listened to a presentation. We had a PowerPoint presentation that was created by Mr. Messer, and he gave a presentation which we recorded. So we listened to that, and then we took notes from it after. We watched it again and listened, and we used it as a note-taking lesson. So I used this project to kind of integrate a lot of different skills that I need to teach anyway in the classroom, a lot of them beyond history, writing, and reading. So it was kind of a long process. We took notes. Students individually were given a section of the presentation to be in charge of, so they listened to it again, and it was filled with so much information. So they kind of distilled the most important parts and wrote them down in their notes. And then they presented it to the class, and we listened to it and added to those notes and clarified them. And then each student, as Kelsey said, they were each in charge of a particular section. Once we had the notes and once we had the facts, each partnership of students was in charge of then turning that into the story. So we met and we talked about it and we put ourselves in those shoes. Prior to that, of course, we had the timeline. So we had some ideas of what was going on in the world and how it's very different from now, but also lots of connections. So we met in small groups to turn those facts into the text, a narrative, because we didn't want to just report what happened. We wanted to turn it into a narrative. So we had a little creative license with some of the details that we couldn't find. There were no journal. We didn't have a journal from her, so we didn't know exactly what she was thinking in her childhood. But they used their experience, and we embellished that part. So we were creative with that part. And then the students illustrated the text too. We figured out it was a lot of main idea and detail work. What pictures did we want to illustrate? Which section would it go in? And we had a few art lessons to go along with it. So it was just all integrated in that way.
I have one more question for both Hill and Marlo. I think as a historical society, it's always one of those things, well, what's the best way to approach a school to say, hey, play with us. We've got stuff, you've got kids. How do you make those initial connections? Because I think there's a lot of historical societies struggling to find ways to engage the youth in their communities. especially now that there seems to be less emphasis on social studies curriculum. But it's, like you said, those skills that you're trying to develop in your students. So what's a good approach to trying to partner with a school? You have, okay.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
We thought at the beginning that we would do 1 or 2 presentations to the older kids. And when we talked to the principal, he was as excited about it as we were. We didn't want to add something to the burden. The teachers already have so much to do. But with working with the teachers and the principal, as you said, integrating all this stuff into their language arts and their math reading and their math, the teachers were superbly cooperative, and because we weren't adding something on top of what they were doing, but integrating, and that integration works.
One of the things we did was, when we proposed in the first place, is we asked if we could help. What can we do that would help you? What do you need? This is what we've got. Do you know, what part of it interests you? And the principal got excited and said, well, we can do this. We can integrate it in every grade in the school. And then we had work. Got to the point where we realized we were drawing about the top of the desk, trying to show what we draw. And then it worked really well.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions about the other projects that we saw? Or comments? No? Well, good. Congratulations to all the recipients, and thank you very much.
All right, well, congratulations again to all the award winners. And before we end the meeting, Andrew, do you want to come up and you can tell us a little bit about what places are open or available for touring? Or actually, what I would love to hear is some information about this particular union house that we're in right now.
So thanks again to the Grafton Historical Society in the back for hosting us today, for coming early, turning the heat on. That was very nice. So the building that we're in now, this was an active church until about 2010, and I use active loosely. It was then donated to the town, and the Historical Society stepped up and said, we will lease it, and we will be responsible for restoring it and maintaining it. And so the Historical Society just recently completed a $90,000 project, most of which you can't see because it's a lot of drainage and structural work down in the basement. But we also found the original colors of the sanctuary here, and we returned the stenciling to the cove ceiling. And we have done those stained glass windows. Obviously, these ones are still to be done, and the steeple will be painted. And we recently received a $10,000 loose plate grant, so the steeple will be done next year. And the building will be nearly complete at that point. Diane, do you want to come up and speak about the Historical Society and the work that you're doing in town? Because this is only one of your projects.
Pretty new, so. Probably a little more about what's going on before than I do, but I'm relatively new with the Grafton Historical Society, so trying to catch up a little bit here. Basically, my goal is what we need to work towards next year. Oh, sorry about that. My goal right now is to continue projects that have been started. Ken Cushion, who was the former president. I gave you a pretty good overview of what they have been working on. I know from Andrew what they've been working on. So we have a lot of projects to finish. The church is very important. We do want to get this done as much as we can with the money we have. And you all understand when you're a small society, you can only do so much. I really want to focus on getting together the materials we've gathered. Ken really put a lot of work into the last, my God, before he was president, years, gathering information for the town about people, places, pictures, but we don't really have that categorized or put together, and I really want to work on that this coming year. We do have a lot of people. The 3 times I've been down to the Historical Society's museum, and people have come in, they've asked about their families, pictures, any info we had, and it's really hard to grasp and help them with that. So that's going to be a big goal for me, is trying to work on that library that is wonderful. It's small, it is packed with what Ken could get in there, the society could organize, but we have a lot more to offer. And so I want to do that. We have other buildings that we plan to work on. Andrew's put in a lot of effort the last few years on a mill that we actually own. We don't lease it. We want to continue in the future to work to better that building so we don't lose it. The jail, we have little projects with that to do. So other than that, I think we're doing what everybody else is doing. We're trying to catch up on our projects, make everything exciting for people so they'll come in, and build some new venues. Get the community excited. It's hard to get this community kind of has pulled away from participating. So I need to find some ways to bring the community in to make the society interesting and exciting for them. And that's going to be a little bit of a struggle, but that's going to be a big goal for this coming year. So I'm kind of hoping being here today, meeting all of you, and then hopefully jotting down some names of people that were here, where you're from, and visiting your societies next year and talking to people that I can get some help with to help our society help to grow. So thank you very much.
And I can quickly say, so it's 11 o'clock. If you're interested in staying longer, I know the weather is actually, you can't see what the weather is doing right now. It just looks gray through the bottom windows. But I'm happy to lead a tour of East Grafton. East Grafton was once known as Bumtown. It's Grafton's industrial village. So formerly, I don't know if anyone saw the state historic marker that was newly installed last year, but the village was once home to several factories and mills. I'm sure a lot of your towns also have those former industrial villages that are no more. Still standing are the carding mill that Diane mentioned earlier, and also a shingle and an edge tool mill that's still standing, and a harness shop as well. And then the houses represent that architecture from the mill owner. So it's an interesting array of buildings up and down the street here. And if anyone is interested after eating and discussing with your friends here, your new friends, I'm happy to lead that tour.
Thank you. All right, so I invite everyone at the conclusion of this meeting to enjoy refreshments, which we have available for people, and to ask questions of award winners and introduce yourselves to each other, because the way we make each of our organizations stronger is by learning from others. And so I would like to thank Andrew again and thank the Grafton Historical Society for hosting this meeting today.